Hello, my name is Ralf Friedrichs. I'm an addiction recovery coach, a life coach, an author, and the host of this show, To Take Your Life Back Today radio show in combination with the YouTube version, Take Your Life Back Today show. My friends, does willpower play a role in addiction recovery? Does it? We tend to oversimplify concepts such as powerlessness and willpower. Well, let's talk about this. By now, the research is clear. Addiction is a chronic brain disease, not a matter of willpower. This means that, contrary to all stereotypes, people who become addicted to drugs or alcohol are not weak, immoral, or tragically flawed. So if addiction is a chronic brain disease and not a matter of willpower, why do we work to get better? Isn't it pointless? Not so, my friends. Addicts start getting better when they take the responsibility for their own sobriety. If someone pushed you down into mud, it's not your fault that you're lying face down in a pile of sludge. But if you continue to lie there after they walk away, believing that you're helpless to change the situation that you're in, you'll be in the mud a very long time. The same is true with addiction. It's not your fault that you have this disease, but it is your responsibility to manage the cards that you've been dealt with and to take the steps to improve your life starting now. As anyone who has tried to strong-arm themselves into recovery knows, willpower alone is rarely enough to overcome addiction. Most addicts at some point want to quit. They cut ties with drug-abusing friends. They get rid of their stash of drugs. They make heartfelt promises to their loved ones. And without appropriate supports in place, many promptly return to their old ways. This pattern is common no matter how strong the addict's will has been in the past or how intelligent, disciplined, or hardworking they are now. The paradox of surrender and willingness. Although addiction is not caused by the lack of willpower, that doesn't mean willpower is a useless concept in recovery. In fact, willingness is central to addiction recovery. 12-step programs call on the addict in a seeming fortune of willpower to recognize their powerlessness over drugs and alcohol and to ask for help. Paradoxically, by surrendering their will and recognizing that they don't have all the answers, addicts find the will to recover. My friends, an interesting study by Abram Sene of University of Illinois at Urbana campaign lends scientific support to the recovery concepts of surrender, the openness. He found that people who kept their minds open, will I do this, were more goal-directed and more motivated than the people that closed their mind. I will do this. Having the freedom of choice seems to create more motivation and thus a greater likelihood of long-term abstinence than feeling obligated to take a particular course of action. When willpower is lacking, recovery requires a leap of faith backed by willingness to admit a problem, take responsibility for your choices along with motivation to work a program of recovery. The decision to put your recovery first requires avoiding the people, places, and things that trigger your desire to use drugs in the first place. It also requires appropriate self-care. For an example, eating a healthy diet, exercising, making time for sober fun, and staying in tune with your emotions daily. What happens when your willpower wanes and you lose interest in work in your recovery program can be lethal. This is where having a social support network made of family, friends, and peers in recovery, a sponsor and others becomes essential. When your motivation lags, they will be there to remind you why you're committed to your recovery and to help you stay on track. According to researchers from the Florida State University, where self-control is lacking, it can be learned through therapy and other forms of treatment. Willpower isn't the way into addiction, but it is part of the way out of addiction. Of course, willpower is just part of the puzzle. Just as someone with diabetes requires medication and lifestyle changes to successfully manage their disease, you will need new coping skills, a support system, education about with the disease, addiction, and new routines in order to stay clean and sober for life. Ditch the druggies, befriend the sobies. One obvious way to quit drugs, yet often overlooked, is to stop hanging around with the regular drug user and instead to associate exclusively with your sober friends, at least for the first month. This is one of the most common reasons people relapse and decided to dabble in drugs once again. Do not overlook this option, believing you are immune to such influence, because, my friends, no one is. If all your friends are regular drug users, maybe perhaps consider finding at least one sober buddy or reconnecting with sobers from your past. Do not idle. It is very important to keep busy when you are trying to stay away from drugs. When you are bored, you start remembering your former solutions to such, which was taking drugs for the most part. Though it's temporary solution which got you into this mess in the first place. What are your reasons to quit? If you don't have a good enough reason to quit, you will lack the motivation necessary to successfully conquer it. Spend some time reading about the consequences and the side effects of the drug you are trying to quit. Also, consider your personal reasons that drove you to decide that it is time to sober up in the first place. Reflect upon your life and the freedom you had before addiction. Take a bite from the cold turkey. If you've had a good history of strong willpower, you can quit cold turkey like I did most of the time. Depending on the drugs, this is usually the best method of quitting. But be careful when attempting to quit. Through sheer willpower, you can do it. If the challenge of quitting is too much for your will to handle and you fail, your willpower will suffer a permanent blow that is hard to recover from. My friends, hide the goods. Another method of quitting, which also ties into willpower, is restricting your access to the drug by any means necessary or available. If you have absolutely no way to acquire the drug, you will eventually give up and let it go. This could be an artificial restriction if your willpower allows for it, or it might need to be an actual type of restriction. Do not think about drugs. Try to go a day without thinking about drugs. Yet another method that ties in with willpower is resisting any thoughts that might pop up about the drug itself. This is very important because most of the time when people decide to come back to drugs, it is after they let their thoughts wander far too long to the point where they consider doing it again. Number 7, if you have the money, consider hypnotherapy. An extreme way to end an addiction is through hypnotherapy, which will completely uproot it from your subconscious. This method is more so as a last resort. For hypnotherapy is usually expensive and it comes with great risk. The risk is that because you go into an altered state of consciousness where your subconscious is fully exposed, the hypnotherapist has full control over your rewiring mechanism and could rewire it totally. Adopt a spiritual perspective. There is a great method that works wonders for ridding yourself of all addictions, matter of fact of all problems, and includes broadening your perspective on life. It is through God. It is far from conventional method, but it is an easy method to reach out to God, to believe that God can not get rid of your problems, but make you work through your problems. This method includes you learning the truth about how the earth came about, how humans came about, and how God is next to you each and every day and is always there for you. Folks, the truth that I'm talking about here is an objective truth that once you fully awaken to, you will never deny or forget it for as long as you shall live, and you will always praise your God. Support and motivation from peers, another possible method, can be very effective, which is, depending on what type of person you are, is through the support and motivation of others. If you're planning on quitting an addiction, tell as many people closest to you as possible as you can. Detoxify your system totally. Flush it out. One final piece of advice that I can offer you during this show is to detoxify your entire body. This is the best done by fasting. Detoxification will raise your vibrations and purify your entire system of all toxic buildup, depending on how long you do it for. Call me at 844-405-HELP, because together we can help each other take our lives back. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. And remember, a simple smile to a total stranger can help that stranger forever and can make a difference in your life. May God bless each and every one of you. I hope that you see that there is more to quitting drugs than having just willingness. You need to want to be willing to go sober. Take good care. May God bless you.